Hello there, it's Arts and Culture time here on France 24. Welcome to Encore. On today's show, prepare for some dance bonkersness from our studio guest Mark Tompkins and his company. The scammers of American Hustle and spacewoman Sandra Bullock sweep the Oscar nominations. We'll be telling you about some of the potential winners you probably know less about too. And meet the young Congolese actress who's gone from street life to stardom. But first, let's say hello to today's guest. Hi there, Mark.
Hello.
Very nice to have you with us in the studio.
Thank you.
Let's introduce you properly to our viewers. Mark's an American dancer, choreographer, and teacher who's lived here in France since 1973. Now, Mark, you created your own independent company, IDA Mark Tompkins, 30 years ago, that's right. In case you're wondering, the IDA stands for International Dreams Associated. Now, the company describes their shows as navigating the borders of dance, theatre, music and performance. Mark, we're going to start with a little look at what you do with a clip of Showtime.
Mon Dieu, qu'il aurait cru si seulement j'avais su quand je l'ai vu tout nu. Mon Dieu, qu'il aurait cru si seulement j'avais su qu'il était complètement poilu. I give you all I got, I give you all I got, I give you. I swear I'll do my best to put my feathers on
There we go, that's Showtime by the IDA Mark Tompkins company. It's just wrapping up a run in Paris and it's going out into the regions pretty soon. Now, Mark, you may have lived in France for 40 years, but all that looks intensely American to me. What's it all about?
I guess maybe you never lose your origins. They're there.
Your cultural heritage
Broadway
is shining through.
And all that. Although in a way, in earlier works, I kind of maybe put it aside. And in the recent past, in the last few years, I made this trilogy of 3 shows that are really based on American theater.
And it goes from about 1830 right up to the current day?
The minstrel show of the 19th century, vaudeville, is the second part from the late 19th to 1930s. And now Showtime, the last part, is the comedy musical of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah, we saw there's tap dancing, there's all sorts in there. So lots of material, obviously, to inspire you in that vast period. What were the bits that you picked up on and how are you putting them together? Is there sort of a message of the shows?
Well, in terms of Showtime, the idea was to in the other shows too, but maybe Showtime more because it's the one the most that people know, the American comedy musical. For example, Singing in the Rain or
Love it.
Bandwagon or
Yeah.
Personally Bandwagon I love. So these are shows where basically in the film, the film version is they're going to make a theater show, and then at the end you see the show on stage, and that's the idea we had. Is that so in Showtime you have the first part is the audition, but the audition is not based on old time auditions. It's based on today's auditions, like the télécrochet, where you have
those really brutal
talent shows
auditions,
where it's quite tough and the talent is sometimes not so
so it's a commentary on now but using the kind of culture of before.
It's a play on what's happening today in relationship to where it came from, and the second part is more like the rehearsal, and then the third part is really the review. It's more of a review, like music hall, French music hall, or American music hall, than it is comedy musical.
And you mentioned that Showtime, it's actually the third and final part of a cycle that begins with this Black and Blues, which is based on black and white minstrel shows. This is an incredibly controversial topic, something considered very off-limits, offensive nowadays. So what's your take on this?
Well, I wanted to make a piece that dealt with racism, and I remembered when I was a kid that I had seen a minstrel show, even though I didn't really understand what it was, and I started to look back at what that was and why it was such a big problem for people in the United States. because it's very particularly the States where it's a problem, not in England, for example.
And there's a very different reaction here in France, isn't it? This show's
In
not
Europe,
actually
it's
performable.
completely different.
Yeah.
In the last year, I went to New York to try and produce the show in America, and I couldn't find a producer. They all said, "I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's not."
Even if you're trying to say it's a commentary on black and white
they
minstrel
say,
shows.
no, you can't do blackface. You cannot do, even in 2012, 13, you cannot do blackface in America.
And obviously, like I said, you've been here in France for 40 years.
Yes.
The cultural scene here, I think, is probably quite different, even in
different.
terms of funding and things. Do you think you'd be able to do what you do generally in the United States?
I think it's really much more difficult because I remember one time I went back to the States, I was already receiving funding from the French Minister of Culture from the very beginning, actually 30 years ago. And all my friends were working in restaurants and cleaning houses. So I felt very like, wow, there's really a difference between the way people look at culture.
Very much so.
And it's a really hard work in the States to find support to, to
put a show on.
Although at the same time, private funding is more possible in the States. Asking for people for subscriptions is more likely than here, where it's looked down upon. To ask people for money like you're begging for money. You go to the state to get money. You don't go to individuals.
A very interesting perspective there. Let's just remind our viewers, the company IDA Mark Tompkins is performing Showtime and opening night in the Paris area in the next couple of weeks. Now, Mark, we've just had the Oscar nominations with Gravity and American Hustle both up for 10 awards. What do you make of all this awards hoopla back in your home country?
Well, I think all those things, it's very normal. I mean, in the sense that people like to congratulate each other for the work they do.
Yeah, which is nice.
Which is, you can't say it's,
And it's a big show for all of us watching as well.
Then I don't know how important it really is in the end, to have or not an Oscar or a César or whatever.
Maybe we have to win one to find out.
Yes, I haven't won any of those things yet.
Oh, me either. Well, there is one film that's being tipped for Oscar success, though, that you probably won't have seen, unless you do, of course, live in the United States. This is Dallas Buyers Club, which plunges us back into the mid-1980s with a man in Dallas who's diagnosed with AIDS. He refuses to accept his prognosis and sets about working around the system to get himself and other patients drugs that they hope could prolong their lives. Leading men Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto both won acting awards at the Golden Globes and both are nominated for Academy Awards. Check out the film.
Mr. Woodruff, you've tested positive for HIV. Have you ever used intravenous drugs? Have you ever engaged in homosexual conduct?
Homo. Did you say homo? You made a mistake, because that ain't me.
Mr. Woodruff, we estimate you have 30 days left.
Newsflash for y'all. There ain't nothing out there can kill Ron Woodruff in 30 days. Them drugs, they just released for testing, and I know this hospital's one of the sites and need it.
It doesn't work that way, Mr. Woodruff.
Well, Mark and I both want to see that one when it comes out here in France later this month. Let's introduce you now, though, to an up-and-coming film actress who's gone from homelessness to a burgeoning career on the big screen. 17-year-old Rachel Mwanza, who's from Kinshasa, was abandoned there by her parents at a very early age. Everything changed, though, when the Montreal filmmaker Kim Nguyen cast her as the star of his film War Witch. This despite her having a total lack of acting experience. Rachel has since gone on to be named Best Actress at the Berlin and Tribeca film festivals. Clovis Caselli reports on her incredible story.
At times, Rachel Mwanza forgets the camera. It's hard to curb her enthusiasm as she discovers she's sharing the cover of a gossip magazine with her idol, Beyoncé. Who would have thought the teenager from the Democratic Republic of Congo would one day impress Hollywood and the world of cinema?
Silver Bear for Best Actress goes to Rachel Mwanza for her role in Rebelle.
And it took her a moment to realise she had actually won.
There was a huge crowd of people who came to me screaming, "Rachel Mwanza, Rachel Mwanza." So many people.
Rachel Mwanza was only 15 when she scooped the prize. She impressed the jury with a breathtaking performance in Rebelle. The film portrays the story of Kimona, an African child soldier abandoned by her parents who believe she's a witch. A larger-than-life story.
Kimona and I were practically the same. Practically. because they stole Kimona's childhood and mine too.
In her book called Survive to See the Next Day, the Congolese actress recounts her tough childhood and how she went through hell when she was accused of being a witch.
My mum often used to go and see witch doctors and healers to know what would happen in the future for her children. One day, one of them told her, "Listen, I can see that your daughter is going to become a witch and will bring misery to your household."
So at the age of 9, she was thrown out of her house and forced to beg to survive. Like thousands of children, she had to live on the streets of Kinshasa.
You had to go through rubbish bins to find food. When I was sick, because I had no strength, I would lie in the street and sleep in dirty puddles. No one wanted to come close to me or talk to me.
4 years of being homeless, beaten up and raped. The nightmare came to an end when the Belgian director of Kinshasa Kids spotted Rachel Mwanza, the starting point of a new life for the teenager who now lives in Canada and has gone back to school to learn how to read and write.
Unbelievable story there. And that does just about wrap up our show for today. Thanks very much for watching. Mark Tompkins, thanks very much for coming in to see us as well.
Thank you.
We're going to end on a bit of a dance note. They're very different from what you do in your shows. This week, the southern French town of Nîmes has been celebrating its annual flamenco festival. So we're going to end with some of the passionate music and dance that has been warming up the town all this week. The city's actually held a flamenco festival for several years, but this is the first time they've held it since Nîmes officially got twinned with Cordoba in Andalusia at the end of last year. So that meant a especially big party with several artists from Cordoba making it over for the event. So we'll leave you with that. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon here on Encore.
Santa María, en la venta de la palma, con la sal de la bahía, nuestro chano nos cantaba.